Rome had many ways to punish Christians: crucifixion, burning, beatings, and public executions. But for young Christian girls, Rome preferred something even crueler: humiliation before death. In the 4th century, the Roman Empire used public stripping, prostitution, and sexual violence to break the faith of Christian women before executing them. And tonight, a 13-year-old girl was being dragged through the streets of Rome toward a brothel. Her crime: she refused to belong to Rome. She claimed she already belonged to Christ. Welcome to the Cries of the Martyrs. I'm your host, Caleb, where we drop new episodes every Monday morning on Spotify. But if you want early access, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, and you'll get it the night before. We are presented by the Battlefront 511 Studios, and if you enjoy this podcast, make sure you check out our other show, the Battlefront 511 Podcast, hosted by me and Melissa. Tonight, we travel back nearly 2,000 years to a world of emperors, pagan temples, gladiators, and persecution. A world where Christians were viewed as enemies of the state, and where one young girl would stand against the most powerful empire on earth. By the early 4th century, Rome ruled much of the known world. The empire was powerful, wealthy, and feared. But beneath its marble temples and military banners, Rome was deeply unstable. Emperors demanded loyalty. Citizens were expected to worship the Roman gods and honor Caesar as divine. Christians refused. They would not burn incense to the pagan gods. They would not declare Caesar Lord. And because of that, Rome saw Christianity not just as a religion, but as a rebellion. Under Emperor Diocletian, again, we're going to take a quick break just to let you know that I'm going to struggle with some of these words tonight. Just laugh it off, and we will continue to go. One of the bloodiest persecutions in Roman history erupted against believers. Churches were destroyed, scriptures were burned, Christians were imprisoned, tortured, and executed. But for women, Rome often chose a different kind of terror: public humiliation. Because Rome understood something: fear could spread faster than execution. So tonight we're going to introduce the star of the story, and her name is Agnes. Now, I'm not Catholic, so a lot of these saints, I don't know who they are. I don't know their stories. We weren't really taught that growing up. So with a lot of these stories, this is the first time, like when I start researching them, I'm learning and hearing these stories for the first time. So maybe that's what you guys are doing as well when you're listening to this. But I know for me, these are hitting pretty hard for me. So, according to early Christian tradition, she was only 12 or 13 years old. Born around AD 291 into a wealthy Roman family, Agnes grew up surrounded by privilege and comfort: marble homes, fine clothing, servants, wealth, and opportunity. And she was beautiful, noble, and desired by many powerful families in Rome. But while Rome expected her to become a wealthy man's wife, Agnes had already made another choice. Somewhere in the quietness of her young life, Agnes devoted herself completely to Jesus Christ. She vowed her purity, her future, and her entire life to God. To Agnes, Christ was already her bridegroom. So this is one of those stories. When I first heard it, first of all, it's something I tell my children all the time. I have a 11-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old daughter. And one thing that really stood out to me in this story was it does not matter what your age is. And I tell this to them all the time. If you're willing, God will use you. It doesn't matter if you're 8, if you're 10, if you're 13. If you allow God to use you, He will. And in all honesty, I think that we will see, or we can see, a lot of miracles happen with kids because they have the faith. They have that childlike faith that sometimes when we get older, we let the cares of our lives take over. But to have that childlike faith. And here's Agnes, 12, 13 years old. I've seen many different, but let's just say 13 years old. I'm gonna stick with 13 here. The fact that she already was giving up her being a bride or having kids one day, being married, she was completely and totally sold out on Christ at such an early age. And not only that, she had wealth. So she, again, had a lot to lose. It wasn't like she was poor and she was dependent on God, right? Like, at least emotionally. Like, she could have just lived her life in comfort and just had God as an afterthought. But whenever she accepted Jesus Christ, that is when she decided that she was giving it all to God. And I just find it so amazing. So amazing what kids can do. And so many times we limit kids because, sit in the corner and be quiet. It's so wrong. It's so wrong because God can use them in such mighty ways. But let's get back to the story here. Now we're going to meet I would say the villain of the story, and his name is Procopius. According to later Christian tradition, one young Roman nobleman became obsessed with Agnes. His name was Procopius, the son of a Roman prefect, Sempronius, wealthy, powerful, and influential. The kind of man no Roman girl was expected to refuse. Procopius showered Agnes with gifts, promises, riches, and marriage proposals. But Agnes refused every one of them. Finally, according to the ancient accounts, Agnes looked at him and said, "Begone from me, thou food of death. I am already engaged to another and far better spouse. He is the King of heaven, to whom I have consecrated my entire being." This rejection humiliated Procopius. Furious and heartbroken, the family investigated Agnes further, and soon they discovered the truth. Agnes was a Christian. I tried to find the age of Procopius, and to be honest, history doesn't even fully know who he was. So some accounts conflict on whether he even truly existed. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm not saying this because I don't believe he existed. In fact, I would say that I do believe he existed. But I'm telling you this because this man was considered powerful and wealthy and important in the eyes of Rome. Yet nearly 2,000 years later, we barely know his name. We question his existence. But not Agnes, a young woman who died for Christ. She is still remembered across the world. Rome remembered power. History remembers faith. So Procopius was furious in the rejection. And again, it was just cool to see Agnes saying, "No, I belong to Christ. I've made a vow that I'm going to be his and his only." And it infuriated them. So the trial is going to begin. During the persecutions of Diocletian, that accusation alone could mean death. Agnes was arrested and brought before the Roman authorities. Prefect Sempronius attempted to pressure the young girl into abandoning her faith. Burn incense to the goddess Vesta, renounce Christ, and save yourself. But Agnes refused. According to traditions, she calmly declared, "My life belongs to him who has chosen me first." So here she was in the trial. They were giving her a way out. Just denounce the faith, burn the incest, it'll all be over. She was 12 or 13 years old, right? We're going to stick with 13 here. And one of the most important parts of the story is that she was a virgin as well. And she kept herself that way because she was giving her entire self to Christ. She was going to work for Christ. I don't know if she would have become like a nun back in those days. I don't really know how all that would have went down because I'm just not 100% sure. I don't know what she would have done. But she was sold out for Christ. Now, because Roman laws, and again, this is why it was so important to know that she was a virgin, because Roman laws often forbade the execution of virgins. The authorities chose another punishment, one designed to destroy her spirit before destroying her body. So Agnes was to a public humiliation and sent to a state brothel. Soldiers dragged the young girl through the streets of Rome as crowds gathered to watch. I mean, that in itself, I don't know if she was drugged by animal, if they just tied her up and, forced her to lay down and they just drug her that way. But more or less, they were doing this to humiliate her. And now they're taking her to the state brothel. So we know what goes on there and what's about to happen to her. And in this next part here, there are, from everything that I researched on this one, there was a lot of debate on the stuff that happened here. Now, the main point of this is what you think is going to happen to her, and I don't like talking about this subject, but it is important to know that this is the kind of stuff that did happen. We're not here to change history, right? We have to know the truth and what these people went through, especially a young girl. Now, again, there were different accounts of what happened, and some said these were Christian traditions that maybe were embellished, but I'm going to just say what happened, and I will let you decide what you think. But ancient Christian traditions say that Agnes was stripped down, and when she was, her hair grew long enough to cover her whole body. So she was not shamed, for being naked in that situation. Other accounts say a heavenly light surrounded her. Some traditions even described an angel standing guard beside her. Men would enter confidently, but fled in terror. According to the stories passed down by early believers, some were struck blind when they attempted to approach her. So these men, the form of this torture was basically they were taking, her innocence, her dignity right here. And, this was a punishment that would happen especially for virgins, but a lot of women. And anytime a man would get close to her, they would be blinded. And it said whether it was by a light, there was an angel there. That account, we're not 100% sure what happened there. But I do know this. It says that Christian tradition, this was something that, was passed down. So could the story have been embellished a little bit? Maybe. But I don't believe it was. And I do believe there was an angel there to protect her innocence in that moment. And the reason why is because, and we'll find out here, she leaves that brothel still a virgin. There would be absolutely no reason for her to still be a virgin if she wasn't protected. And to me, it's just so cool because especially in those days, those kind of mirror. I mean, it's so cool. It is so cool. I mean, obviously, I mean, if we're looking at this through the world's eyes, this is a tragedy. This young girl who's 13, who's about to die. But through the Christian eyes, we're seeing things way differently. We're seeing God lift her up before her death because she's staying true to him and she wasn't violated. And it just shows so much love God is showing here for this young girl who just loves Jesus. So let's get back to her, okay? So Rome intended to violate her, but according to Christian memory, heaven itself stood between Agnes and the empire. So now let's go to the arena where she is going to die. Enraged that Agnes still refused to break, the authorities condemned her to death. According to later tradition, a magistrate named Aspasius ordered her tied to a wooden stake and burned alive before the crowds. Soldiers stacked wood around her feet. Torches touched the ground. Flames roared up into the Roman sky. But then something happened that stunned the crowd. The fire refused to touch her. Ancient accounts claim that flames split around Agnes, leaving her standing untouched in the center of the blaze. While panic spread through the crowd, Agnes lifted her hands and praised God. So, and again, another miracle is happening. And I know that what I'm seeing here again was she gave her entire self, her entire body to God. And when you go back up, her first punishment, she was saved. She was saved the humiliation, and she kept her innocence. Now, as her form of death was by fire, God again saved her body, saved her from the pain of the fire. And again, he lifted her up before man. And she took that moment to glorify him in front of the entire crowd. What an absolute message that sent. How many people in that crowd had to think, man, who is this Jesus? And if you're listening to this and you don't believe in God, let's say you're an atheist and you're listening to this, I mean, even if you believe that this was all fake, even if you believe that Jesus is not real and God's not real, the fact that this did happen, like how could a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old girl give herself up like this? You don't do that for a fairy tale. So the point I'm trying to make is this: people aren't dying for a fairy tale. They're dying for Christ, who is real. And when you put your hope in him, when you put your hope in heaven, this world, it just doesn't mean anything. And being able to look at this story as a Christian, there's just so much faith, and it just inspires you and encourages you. And I hope that's what this is doing. So let's finish up this story here. Fear began spreading among the Romans. So the magistrate ordered the execution ended immediately. A soldier stepped forward with a Roman blade. According to the poet Prudentius, the executioner trembled violently as he approached the young girl. Agnes, however, remained calm. Then came the words that would echo through Christian history. Strike without fear, for a bride does her spouse an injury if she makes him wait. He who chose me first shall have me. Agnes knelt down. She bowed her head, and the sword fell. And this was around AD 304. A 13-year-old girl died for refusing to renounce Jesus Christ. And we've seen this in a few other episodes too. And I'm reading a new book right now, and it's got all these different stories in it. And one thing I've noticed in a lot of these stories is people are afraid. They get to a point where they are actually afraid to kill the Christian, and the Christian openly will lay down their life for their Savior. And it's just like in this story right here. Here's a man with a sword who is trembling. And I think he was trembling because you just seen this girl that should have been burned, and the fire's not even touching her. I mean, at the very least, you think she's a witch, that she's going to cast some kind of spell on you. So the fear, he was trembling, or the fear of Jesus Christ is real, and he is with this girl, and I don't want to mess with this. But even then, she basically said, it's okay. Do it, because Jesus is waiting for me, and I can't wait to get there. Now, that in itself is remarkable, but we are going to actually, there's a little bit more to this story. In the days after Agnes's death, Roman Christians quietly gathered her body and buried her outside the city along Via Nomentana. But the story did not end there. According to Christian traditions, only a few days later, Agnes's foster sister, Anna, which I will call her Anna, went to pray at her tomb. When pagan crowds mocked Agnes and the Christians mourning her death, Anna boldly rebuked them. The mob turned violent, stones began crashing into her body, and there beside the grave of Agnes, Anna became a martyr herself. Again, that's just, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy how the world was, how the world is. But it's something that we can't be surprised about, because this is how the world is. And that's why we should never put our faith in this world. Do not put it in this world. So, Rome tried to strip away Agnes's dignity, her purity, her faith, and her future. But the empire that condemned her is gone. Its governors are dust. Its arenas stand in ruins. And nearly 2,000 years later, the world still remembers the name of a 13-year-old Christian girl. Rome could punish her body, but it could not possess her soul. And though their voices may be gone, their stories still cry out. Thank you for listening to the Cries of the Martyrs. If this story has impacted you, please share it with somebody else. And make sure to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen. You can also find us on YouTube. Please subscribe to us on there and leave us a comment. And you will get early access if you subscribe to us on YouTube. And that is free. There's nothing that will cost you guys any money. And don't forget to follow our other show, the Battlefront 511. Until next time. And remember this, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.